You are now listening to the Well Beauty Lab Podcast, where we inspire you to cultivate a lifestyle that supports your well-being. I am your host and Chief Wellness Officer, LaKeisha Entsuah. Let's get into it. Well, hello there, beautiful people. Welcome to another episode of the Well Beauty Lab Podcast, where we help you create sustainable wellness goals so that you can thrive instead of just survive. I am your host and Chief Wellness Officer, LaKeisha Entsuah, and today we are talking about my issue with the hashtag mom goals. This is something that, I don't know, maybe it gets under my skin a little more than it does other people, but I want to talk about why it is not the best term to use for our mental health and some things we should focus on instead. But before we get to that, it is time for our Live Well tip of the week. And this week's tip is comparison is the enemy of alignment. Here's the thing. You cannot be fully present in your own journey and your own experiences if you are constantly comparing yourself and your life with someone else's, especially when that comparison comes from a snapshot, a 30-second, 60-second, 2-minute video that you see on social media. You can't compare yourself with what you see because you don't know the background. And not only that, what's more important is, like I said, it takes you outside of alignment with your own journey. So let's put it into comparison. Let 2022 be the year that we bury comparison and we walk fully in alignment with our own journey. So let's get into today's topic. Why I take issue with the term mom goals. So here's the thing. I guess on the surface, the word alone, there's nothing wrong with it. My issue comes in how we see it highlighted. And I think that particularly right now, as we as parents, we as mothers especially, are under an immense amount of stress and pressure because of the never-ending pandemic. I feel like every time we see the term mom goals, it's because you see a mom who is working out and eating super healthy, and she's got a 4-course meal on the table, and her kids are perfectly behaved, at least from what you can see in the tiny squares on your social media feed. And as we look at that and as we scroll through, it's really affecting our mental health. We're starting to look at ourselves and say, well, if she can do it, why can't I? And well, the reason you can't do it is because you don't know what it took for her to do it. And not only that, just because it's something that worked for her and is for her doesn't mean it's for you. That activity, that thing, that achievement that mother has might not be part of your story. It might not be intended to be part of your journey. And so I really take issue with us using this term and what it can do to our mental health. So issue number one is that it encourages us to strive for unrealistic goals. And like I said before, you don't know what it took. You don't know that if in that 30-second video where this mom is showing you how her children are eating their macaroni and cheese that has hidden vegetables inside and they're loving every bit of it, you don't know how many takes it took her to get that video. You don't know if she had to bribe her kids in order to eat it. You don't know a whole lot of things. We don't have the background information. We're not a fly on the wall in that house. And when we look at those moments in time and we start to question ourselves and our own abilities and what's happening in our own worlds, I think it really puts unnecessary pressure on us to strive for something that is oftentimes unrealistic. And not unrealistic because it's unobtainable, but unrealistic because it's just not part of our journey all the time. And I don't think there's anything wrong with inspiration I love to be inspired by things that other people are able to do. I am a Pinterest junkie. Um, I love to look at the pictures and say, "Ooh, I might be able to do something like that," or "Ooh, that recipe looks great. I think I might want to try it." But I think that there is a fine line between inspiration and comparison, and sometimes we can really get caught on the side of comparison. So that's issue number one. And issue number two is closely tied to that, but it only focuses on what can be seen, right? So we don't know the mental struggle behind it. We don't know the emotional struggle behind it. We don't know the physical toll that it's taken, particularly when I see, we show pictures of women who've quote unquote snapped back after they've had babies. That one really gets me. Listen, some of our bodies do interesting things, and everyone, what you look like after giving birth, there is nothing wrong with it. It is perfectly normal. And I think the more we glamorize the snapback, the more, again, we are pushing people to strive for unrealistic goals. And then we're putting ourselves under unnecessary emotional pain when we can't reach those goals. And so it's really only focusing on what can be seen. When you see a mom juggling work and kids and relationships, and she's still hanging out with her friends, listen, sis could be tired. She could be running on fumes. Yeah, it looks good, but you don't know what it took for her to do all that. And so by only focusing on what you can see, we don't take into account everything in the background. And again, we're striving for those unrealistic goals. And then finally, it interferes with our own intuition. When we start to look at people and we start to assign mom goals to certain things, you can begin to question yourself. You can begin to question your own sanity. You can begin to question your own ability, how you raising your kids, how you running your family. And I think that one of the greatest gifts that we have as parents, especially since this job doesn't come with a handbook, there is no training. There are a few rules, and the greatest thing that we have for us to rely on is our intuition. And again, that fine line between inspiration and comparison forces you to start to question your own intuition and what you know to be true, and what you know works for you, and what you know fits into the construct of your life and your own journey. And so let's be careful. I'm not gonna say get rid of it altogether. Virtually impossible. Let's be careful with how we use the term mom goals. Let's be careful with what we assign to that. Let's focus more on when we see parents loving on their children. And even in that, when we start to talk about in the construct of social media and media in general, again, we are only looking at a snapshot of what they want us to see. And so let's stay on the side of inspiration. And let's really try to stay away from the comparison trap, that rabbit hole that we can fall down when we start to look at things and talking about mom goals as it relates to that. And then what happens when you're on the other side of that? Now, I'm one of those people who really struggles with people complimenting my parenting. And I'm going to tell you why. One, I try really hard not to judge other people's parenting because, again, you don't know the background, and every child is unique. And so I try to reserve judgment on other people's parenting. And that's one. And then the other thing, my struggle with accepting compliments on my parenting is that much of it doesn't always have to do with what I do, and more so with how my children react to what I do. And that is not always consistent. And so when people see me, particularly when you have twins, sometimes people can be mesmerized by them. They always seem to draw attention when we are out, and I have to give my kids credit. They are pretty well behaved in public. If you were a fly on the wall in my house, it might be a different story, but in public, they're very well behaved. And there have been times where I've had people come up to me when we are in public and say, "Oh, your children are so well behaved," and we need to see more mothering like you're doing. And in my head, I'm saying, "Ma'am, sir, you don't know what it took for us to get through this. You don't know the pep talk that I had to give to myself, pep talk I had to give to these kids, the strength that it took me to get to this point today. So thank you. But let's not really read too much into that. So I really have a hard time accepting that those compliments on my parenting, or when people say, "Oh yeah, your mom goals," or "Oh yeah, that's mom goals." And so if you are on the receiving end of that, and you are like me and you kind of have a hard time accepting it, or you prefer to reject it altogether, my advice to you is to don't be fake humble, though, right? Like, we're not gonna be fake humble. We're not gonna be like, "Oh, well, I try. Oh, well, I do my best." Well, yeah, we know you're doing your best. That's probably why you got the compliment you got in the first place. Instead, I think it's better for us to simply say thank you and then let it go. Let's pretend like it didn't happen. And then that way you won't be holding in your head that the next time you go out or the next time you do that thing, that you have to have the same outcome, right? Because I can go out with my kids tomorrow and they have complete meltdowns. And much of that has very little to do with my parenting, and a whole lot to do with the situation and their mood. So if you were on the receiving end of the mom goals compliment, try not to hold on to it too tightly. Don't let it cloud your expectations moving forward. Don't let it be the standard of how you should operate, because then if you don't meet that standard, then we get into a whole different issue of feeling like we're failing because we're not meeting other people's expectations. And that's not what parenting, that's not what motherhood is about. It's not about meeting other people's expectations. So those are my gripes with the term mom goals. I am going to get off of my soapbox now and wrap this one up. But let me know, is there a particular hashtag that you see used quite often on social media that really gets under your skin? If there is, let me know in the comments. Drop us an email at hello@wellbeautylab.com. Let me know what that hashtag is. And if it's one that I share the same gripe with, then maybe it will be a topic on an upcoming episode. So guys, that is all I have time for today. Thank you for allowing me the space to get on my soapbox about this. Don't forget to subscribe on whatever platform you are listening to us on, so that you never miss an episode. And I will talk to you guys again soon. This has been another episode of Well Beauty Lab Podcast. I am your host and Chief Wellness Officer, LaKeisha Entsuah. Music and production